Here's a look at the new CF Design 2010 design study environment. We streamlined the setup process to be optimized for multi-scenario design studies. So in this case, I have this little hydraulic assembly, and I have two different designs, holes and slots, and that pertains to the inside cutouts that you have in this model. So I have a slot design and I have a holes design, and each one of these guys has two different scenarios. One has 100 liters per minute, the other scenario is 75 liters per minute. So inside of this design study, I have four total scenarios. And what I want to understand is I want to know what's the pressure drop in all four scenarios, what is the flow characteristics in all four, and I really want to be able to understand whether something passed or failed based on some critical value criteria. So let's take a look at just the overall setup improvements in 2010. So as I expand the tree in the design study bar, I can begin to assign materials interactively on the model. If I want to go down to boundary conditions, it works the same way. I simply just pick and edit the model itself. So a lot different than it used to be. If I want to be able to run, say, 50 liters per minute, I simply right click and I can clone that model, and it creates a really lightweight copy of itself. I simply go in, edit the parameter that I care about, and I move on. If I want to change the geometry, I can do that at the design level. So if I simply right click and clone slots, it will create a duplicate copy of itself with both scenarios underneath. I go back to CAD, I click update, and it will automatically push the changed geometry into that design. It'll copy the settings, the materials, the boundary conditions, and away I go. Okay, so let's jump into some of the results. So here are some flow velocities and vectors inside this model itself. But oftentimes, before people really get into some of the cool visualization stuff, they really want to understand whether something passed some certain criteria. So in this case, I want to go in here and I want to understand what's the pressure drop. So I pick the pressure, I pick whatever unit system I want, and so let's say I want to go in bar, and I calculate it, and it populates down here 0.84 bar. But maybe on the fly right here, I want to understand what's the pressure drop in all four scenarios. So I simply click this little checkbox here called summary, and if I go down here into the critical values section of the decision center, I pick on the inlet table, and it shows me all the inlet information that I want within my model. And in this case, it's pressure, and I simply pick this guy right here and I plot it. And very quickly I can decide whether something passed or failed. And what I base that on is some reference value. So that's usually a failure pressure or some operating pressure. So very quickly we can see that the two high flow rates are kind of exceeding this reference value that we care about. The two low flow rates are probably okay. I can give you that information also at the point level. So oftentimes, the beauty of simulation is to be able to pull out information where you simply can't physically test it. So maybe I want to go in here and put a point inside the valve, to check for chattering or some kind of pressure, as the valve is opening and closing. And I can plot that information, both pressure, velocity, whatever you have, we can plot all that information. We really get a clear picture from a numerical perspective whether the model is going to pass or fail. Okay. One of the other really cool things about the decision center down here at the bottom is the design review center. So oftentimes I want to create that image that's up there on the screen, but I want that same image in all of my models. So we give you this really cool thumbnail film strip down at the bottom that you can drag and drop these models up on the screen. So here's an image of that whole pattern, and maybe I want to split the screen into two, and I want to drag and drop one of the slot designs up on the screen. So as I just drag and drop that model up on the screen, it shows me not only the whole pattern, but it also shows me the slot. And if I want, I can manipulate those guys at the same time. So I can really go in there and see that you have two completely different geometries, but I also have the ability to drag and drop other images like pressure. So I can actually drag and drop an image of the pressure calculation and then look at velocity and pressure at the same time. So again, CF Design 2010 multi-scenario design studies really changed in the way people interact with CFD. So check us out at cfdesign.com. Thanks.